The Jordan Show on YouTube.
All right, let's dive in. Today we're going to untangle a story that's surprisingly fascinating. The story of the USB.
USB, huh?
Yeah, that little port that we all use every single day, multiple times a day. We sort of just take it for granted. But
You do.
the story of how we got from this mess of connectors and cables to this one tiny universal port, it's a wild ride.
Yeah, and it's something that, subtly changed how we all interact with technology.
Totally. And to help us unpack all this, we've got pasted text. It goes deep into the history and significance of the USB.
Right, sounds good. So where do we start? What's the mission for this deep dive?
Well, we really want to understand why the USB became so important, how it managed to evolve over the years, and what the future holds for this little connector.
Okay, so let's go back, way back.
Way back. Picture this.
Yeah.
It's the early 90s. You've just gotten this brand new printer.
Yeah.
Super excited. You can't wait to print out, your big presentation or whatever. But then reality hits. You've got this tangled mess of cables. You're trying to figure out which port to plug it into.
Oh, yeah?
And then the dreaded driver installation.
Oh, the drivers, yeah. I remember those days.
Oh, it was a nightmare. Trying to connect even a simple device, back then it was like a multi-hour ordeal.
It was. Remember those serial ports, the parallel ports, PS2 connectors, and don't even get me started on SCSI interfaces.
Oh man, each one like its own special snowflake of incompatibility.
Exactly.
It's hard to imagine that kind of tech frustration these days. And then, in 1996, boom, the USB arrives, promising to bring order to all of that.
It was a big promise.
So what was the big idea behind the USB? What were they hoping to achieve?
Well, the vision was a universal standard.
One port to rule them all.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to simplify everything. Like any device from keyboards and mice to printers and scanners would all use the same port.
No more hunting for the right connector.
No more new wrestling with incompatible hardware. No more frustration.
So it was all about making things easier for the user.
Right, exactly. They understood that technology should work for people, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was plug and play. You just plug it in, and the computer does the rest.
No more driver nightmares.
No more driver nightmares.
Okay, so we've got standardization, we've got plug and play. I feel like there's more to the story though, right?
Oh, there's definitely more. They also introduced hot swapping.
Hot swapping.
Remember the days of having to shut down your entire computer just to unplug something?
Vaguely. I try to block those memories out.
Well, with USB, you could connect and disconnect devices while the computer was running.
Okay, yeah. It seems so basic now, but back then, it was revolutionary.
It was. And on top of that, USB brought power delivery into the mix.
So you didn't need a separate power adapter for every single gadget.
Exactly.
That's a lot packed into this tiny port. Standardization, plug and play, hot swapping, and power.
That's the beauty of it.
But like any new technology, I'm guessing it wasn't an overnight success story.
You're right. The first version, USB 1.0, arrived in 1996 with a lot of fanfare. But it faced some hurdles.
What kind of huddles?
Driver issues, compatibility problems, you name it. It was like they were trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And even though it offered low speed at 1.5 milliPs and full speed at 12 milliPs,
Yeah, I bet those speeds felt slow even back then, right?
well, the technology was still evolving. The kinks needed to be worked out. It wasn't quite the seamless experience they'd envisioned, at least not at first.
Yeah, even revolutionary ideas, sometimes they take a while to find their footing.
They do.
So how did they get past those early bumps in the road, just tweaking and refining until things worked?
Pretty much. USB 1.1 came along in 98 and fixed a lot of those initial problems. Keyboards, mice, those became much more reliable. But the real breakthrough, that came in 2000 with USB 2.0.
Oh, USB 2.0. Now things are starting to sound familiar.
Right.
That's when things really took off, right?
Absolutely. USB 2.0, they introduced high speed at 480 milliPs, a significant jump at the time.
480 MegaPs, that was mind-blowing back then. I remember transferring files using floppy disks, waiting forever for just a few megabytes.
Exactly. And with USB 2.0, suddenly, external hard drives became practical. Webcams started popping up everywhere. It was a real turning point.
Connecting people visually.
Exactly.
Okay, so from battling compatibility issues to connecting people through video calls, the USB had quite the journey. But we're just getting started, right? There's a lot more to this story.
There is. We haven't even talked about USB 3.0 or the game-changing USB Type-C yet.
Oh, yeah. That sleek little connector. I can't wait to hear more about that.
All right, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into the next chapter of the USB saga. All right, so we were talking about USB 2.0. That was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, a real game changer. 480 millipiece. That was a lot back then.
It was, and that need for speed, it didn't go away.
Of course not. We always want things faster.
Right, so in 2008, USB 3.0 arrived, and it introduced super speed. Super speed at 5 GBps.
5 GBps. Okay, now we're talking. But what did that actually mean for, regular people using computers?
Well, external hard drives, for example, they could handle way more data.
So backups and transferring big files got a lot faster.
Exactly. And things like high-resolution cameras, video editing, anything involving lots of data got a huge boost in performance.
So it wasn't just about speed for the sake of speed. It actually made a difference in how people use their devices.
It did. And then, in 2013, along came USB 3.1, pushing things even further.
Even further. How much faster could it get?
Well, they called it Super Speed Plus C, and it went up to 10 GBps. But maybe even more importantly, this is when we got the USB Type-C connector.
Oh, yeah, the USB-C, the one you can plug in either way.
Exactly. No more flipping it over and over, trying to figure out which side is up.
What a relief. Seriously, though, the USB-C, it's everywhere now.
It is, and for good reason. It's designed to handle all the different USB standards, even the high power delivery that you need for laptops and stuff.
So they really were thinking ahead when they designed it.
They were. They knew we'd need a connector that could handle both data and power for all sorts of devices.
And it's so much simpler, just having one connector for everything.
Exactly. Smartphones, tablets, laptops, even cameras and headphones, they're all moving to USB-C. It's making our lives a lot easier.
Okay, so faster speeds, a better connector. What's next in this USB evolution?
Well, things kept moving. In 2017, we got USB 3.2, which mainly, it just made the names a little less confusing.
Less confusing is always good.
Right. But the speeds, they kept increasing. USB 3.2 could go up to 20 GBps.
Okay, so now we're talking about speeds that are like 20 times faster than USB 2.0.
Yep, technology moved fast. But then in 2019, something really interesting happened. USB 4 was released, and it borrowed technology from Thunderbolt 3.
Thunderbolt 3, that's for high-end stuff, right?
It is. And by incorporating Thunderbolt 3 technology, USB 4 was able to reach a speed of 40 GBps.
40 GBps, that's insanely fast.
It is, but it wasn't just about speed. USB 4 also improved video transmission.
So connecting to external monitors and stuff?
Exactly. Higher resolutions, faster refresh rates, all made possible with USB 4. And another big plus was that it was more compatible with existing Thunderbolt devices.
So if you had a laptop with a Thunderbolt port, you could use it with all sorts of USB devices, no problem.
Exactly. More versatility, more convenience.
It's like they were trying to create the ultimate connector, one that could handle everything.
Well, they didn't stop there. In 2019, USB 4 version 2.0 came out. And guess what?
They doubled the speed again.
You got it. 80 GBps.
80 GBps, that's...
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'd do with that much speed.
It's hard to imagine, right? But think about it. 8K video, virtual reality, all these things require massive amounts of data.
So as our technology gets more demanding, USB has to keep up.
Exactly. And it's not just speed. Power delivery has also come a long way.
Power delivery, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Well, with the latest USB power delivery specifications, we're talking about up to 240 watts of power.
240 watts, that could power a whole desktop computer.
Yeah. Pretty much. Gaming laptops, big monitors, no problem. And with USB-C becoming the standard connector, we're getting closer to that dream of one cable for everything.
Data, video, power, all in one tiny little cable.
Exactly. And think about it, this also means less waste, right? Fewer chargers and adapters cluttering up our drawers.
Good for the environment, too.
Right. But there's one more thing we need to talk about. The convergence of USB with other standards, like Thunderbolt. We saw a bit of that with USB 4, but it's becoming even more of a trend.
So are we heading towards a future where USB and Thunderbolt are basically the same thing?
It's possible. The lines are definitely blurring. The idea is to create a unified connectivity ecosystem where everything just works together seamlessly.
That would be amazing. No more worrying about which cable to use, which port is compatible, just plug and play no matter what.
That's the vision. But there are challenges, of course. Thunderbolt technology is usually more expensive, so that could be an issue.
Yeah, we don't want to end up with cutting-edge technology that only some people can afford.
Exactly. And that's something the USB Implementers Forum is very aware of. They're trying to make sure USB stays both innovative and affordable.
It's a tough balance to strike. On the one hand, I love the idea of one universal connector for everything. But on the other hand, putting all our eggs in one basket, so to speak, could be risky. What if there's a design flaw or a security vulnerability?
That's a valid concern. But the development of USB standards is a collaborative process. Lots of companies and experts are working on it, trying to make sure it's secure and reliable.
Okay, so it's a trade-off. Standardization versus diversity. It's amazing how something as simple as a connector can raise such complex issues.
It really is. And that's what makes the evolution of USB so interesting. It's not just about technology, it's about how technology affects our lives, our choices, and the challenges we face.
So we've talked about faster speeds, more power, USB-C, and the merging of standards. Feels like we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But there's still more to explore. The human side of this story, for instance.
Yeah. We've thrown around a lot of tech terms, but at the end of the day, what does all this mean for the average person? It's pretty wild, right? We started talking about all these messy cables, and now we're imagining a future where this tiny port could power robots or even, like, talk to our own bodies.
It is wild. But it kind of shows how, big innovations often come from solving those everyday problems. Like, who would have thought that wanting easier connections would lead to all this?
Yeah, exactly. It makes you think, what problems that we're dealing with right now could lead to some crazy tech in the future? But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's talk about what USB means for us, like, right now.
You're right. It's easy to get lost in thinking about the future. But sometimes the best tech is the tech that just works without us even noticing it.
And that's kind of the beauty of USB, right? It's not flashy or anything, but it connects everything in our digital lives and lets us do things that we couldn't have even imagined a while ago.
It does. It's like the unsung hero of the digital age. And as we get more and more connected with all these smart devices and wearables, that reliability, it's only going to become more important.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of USB, I want to leave you with this. Next time you plug in a USB device, just take a second to think about everything that went into it, all the innovation and problem solving.
It's a testament to human ingenuity, to our desire to make things better. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to push the boundaries of USB even further.
Yeah, leading us into a future that we can't even imagine right now. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the world of technology.